Welcome to this podcast. It's making me thirsty. This is episode 41. In this episode, we talked to Dominic Nero. Dom is a writer and video editor. He currently works at Esquire, making films about comedy, film, and gaming. His work has been featured in Entertainment Weekly and the AV Club. He hosts a film podcast called Eye of the Duck. And he recently released a Twin Peaks Seinfeld short film called Seinfeld The Return, which has garnered quite a bit of attention, including from Jason Alexander. And that's why we have him on today to talk about that film and all things Seinfeld. So, Dom, thanks for joining us, man.
Great to be here, guys. So excited to finally talk about this.
Well, before we dig into that, Dom, so take us a little back. So you're a South Jersey guy. I'm guessing you late 20s, early 30s.
I just turned 30 on February 20th.
Congrats. So young guy, obviously you weren't even kind of alive during when Seinfeld and Twin Peaks both kind of were released. Were you a Seinfeld fan first or Twin Peaks?
Yeah, so my parents were huge Seinfeld fans, and I was watching Seinfeld almost every night of the week from, as long as I can remember. I didn't discover Twin Peaks until a little after college, like maybe 2014.
So yeah, there's been obviously your film, and I've seen the Twin Peaks guys on Twitter. There's a lot of buzz and connection between the two shows. Can you kind of just explain a little bit about that before we kind of dig into your film? What's the connection between the two shows, other than I know there's there's overlap characters, things like that, but kind of what's been the big draw here?
Well, yeah, so there's a few actors who have appeared in both series. For my purposes of trying to make a Seinfeld reunion episode, basically, I wasn't so much interested in that. I think there is some sort of vibe about Seinfeld and Twin Peaks that is kind of shared. I think they both were very famous around the same time, both by very distinctive voices. David Lynch, Larry David, of course, Jerry Seinfeld, Kyle MacLachlan. There feels like there are these sort of vibey similarities out there. Kind of hard to put your finger on it, but I think a lot of people seem to have cued into that connection.
Interesting. I was going to ask you about that. The Larry David Lynch sort of, I know you just said it's hard to put your finger on it, but we really like to dive deep on this show. Like, what is it? I mean, they're two obviously geniuses, but in two completely different ways, but maybe not in completely different ways, I think is what you're getting at. To have a mind like that, you have to think abstractly. Maybe Larry David focuses it more on more practical things, and maybe David Lynch deconstruction. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not that keen on. I don't know Twin Peaks that well, but I do know David Lynch's movies pretty well. So yeah, maybe just let's dive a little deeper there. It sounds like you became a Seinfeld fan first, but which, as a filmmaker yourself, an editor, are you more of a Lynch guy or a Larry David guy?
Well, I'm also a huge fan of Curb.
Okay.
In addition to being like a David Lynch fan, I've always been a big comedy guy. And then through college and after college, I kind of got more serious about filmmaking. I think one of the biggest similarities that I could say between these two shows, which I don't know if a lot of people recognize this, is they're both kind of strangely obsessed over minutia of life. Twin Peaks, for people who love that show, they remember Agent Dale Cooper obsessing over the smell of the trees, or the taste of just a normal donut that you get from a diner. I think it's strange that Seinfeld and Larry David, they're zooming in super close on these little things about life that we don't normally talk about. Another big thing that's really funny to think about is that in Twin Peaks, I think the story is that basically David Lynch wrote mostly for Agent Dale Cooper, whereas his co-writer, creator Mark Frost wrote mostly for Sheriff Truman. And we sort of have that analog in Seinfeld where, I don't know about as much about Seinfeld as you guys, but we know that Larry sort of wrote mostly for George, from what I understand, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Jerry for Jerry.
Interesting. There you go. That's a very good point. Nice.
So circling back, you mentioned you wanted to do a Seinfeld reunion, right? So that was kind of always in your head, right? So, and then you mentioned the parallels. Obviously, both shows kind of kicked off like 89, 90. Obviously, Seinfeld went 9 years. Twin Peaks only had about 2 seasons, I believe. And then I know they did a something in the, like, what, 2015 or something. But like, did you have any other thoughts? Was Twin Peaks always there as kind of a theme where you wanted to build this, or kind of touch on that? Like, why the obviously the parallels, I get that, but why that for a union versus just something kind of unique from your own perspective?
As I was preparing, speaking with you guys, I kept thinking, I have this memory from very early in my life of talking to my parents about Seinfeld and saying, it would be really cool if Newman died. And my parents being like, what? and I'm trying to explain to them, like, it would be so interesting because everyone would feel so bad for him. And then it kind of dawned on me by the confusion on their faces that, like, I'm a weird boy. I have weird ideas. People don't want to see Newman die. I want to see how the Seinfeld people react to this really dark idea. Like, how bad would they all feel because they don't make fun of him so much?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in the first episode, Newman is introduced. We don't see him, and Larry David is his voice, and he's going to commit suicide. And he was supposed to.
Wow.
He was supposed to die. In fact, if I believe,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the first episode you hear of Newman, Kramer's yelling up the roof, "Just jump, just jump!" Newman's on the roof again, going to jump, and he's like, "Just do it already!" And you hear it's Larry David's voice, "I'm going to jump, I'm going to jump." Kramer. So they and to your point. And maybe you need to dive. I think you should dive deeper into seasons 2 and 3 of Seinfeld, because it's all dark. I mean, Larry Charles
show.
Yeah, Larry Charles episodes specifically are. I mean, they get existential. They get dark. There's death. There's the pony remark with Manya and the spirit world. Anyway, so there is a connection there. You're onto something. And it would be funny though if Newman died, because he is Jerry's arch nemesis, like you said. Like, yes. Are we happy? Are we sad? It's an interesting thing. In your film though, you have Jerry die, right? That's because here's the thing, man. Yes. And for people that aren't, haven't seen it yet, Dom put together it's called Seinfeld The Return, and it's on YouTube. It's got over 2,000 and something 200,000 hits. And it's basically, to me, and this is, again, I want you to kind of explain this, because these abstract things kind of can go off, and it's like, it's weird, but I think there's a point in a plot. It looks like, Jerry dies. They're trying to figure out who did it. It seems like it's like some sort of version of George that did it, perhaps some alter ego of George that killed Jerry. And then at the end, Jerry Stiller shows up and blows the whole thing to bits and puts George back together whole as a normal person. I mean, a nice person. I don't know, maybe you can give us a better synopsis. That's what I got out of it anyway, after 4 watches.
I mean, you nailed it.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the plot.
give us your thoughts on where you were going with it, and
okay.
Was the original version longer than 11 minutes? Like, was it how much did you edit it down? Just to start there, really. Like, I'm just curious.
Okay. So and you asked a little bit earlier about why Twin Peaks became like the connecting tissue to making this happen. So Twin Peaks The Return, which is this 3rd season of Twin Peaks that aired on Showtime, which was famously sort of a complete kind of 180 from the sort of like lovable PG world of Twin Peaks that people knew. This new season, which aired in this like sort of prestige limited event, was super dark, super cryptic. People described it as pure heroin Lynch, which it totally feels like. So as they are promoting Twin Peaks The Return, we're seeing all of these cryptic trailers for this new show.
Okay.
And we're seeing just small little glimpses of Agent Dale Cooper just for like a second with this weird music. So that's in May 2017. And on May 29th, just for fun, I put out a trailer for Seinfeld The Return, not knowing that I would ever return to this idea. I sometimes just make like, supercuts and mashups and put them on Twitter just for fun, just as a joke. And
Right.
I put that online and it took off. It got like, 3,000 hits, which was good. It's good for me. And it started to propel my other stuff. And so then all of Twin Peaks The Return comes out and we watch all that. A few years later, 2020, the pandemic starts and I'm trapped in my apartment for months on end. God, I need a project. And I look at Seinfeld The Return, the trailer I made, and then I start digging and I start finding clips and I start thinking, maybe I could actually do a whole episode. How funny would it be if I actually did a whole episode? So then in the first month of the pandemic, I put out the first 2 minutes of Seinfeld The Return, which was mostly just an opening bit showing them getting out of jail, some flashbacks to the last episode of the series, which is really funny because they actually do say like, we'll be in here for a year and then we'll be back. And then I put together like an opening sequence that was modeled after the opening sequence of Twin Peaks The Return. And then I put that out and nobody really watched it. And I thought, all right, this idea is done. And then New Year's came around and I was thinking about all the work that I had done during the pandemic and thinking, God, I really think this Seinfeld thing is funny. Why don't I just put it out again? I believe in it and whatever, it doesn't matter anyway. I just did it for fun. Maybe someone will watch it this time and we'll, goof around about it. This time when I put it out and I recut a little bit of this stuff, Tim Heidecker, who's part of Tim and Eric, the comedy team, and
Right.
a few other big Twitter accounts shared it. And it got, very big for my standards. And I was really excited. People like it. I made a second one. I made a third one, fourth one, a fifth one. I just started making these little parts and, finding more clips, having fun with it, trying to just commit to the bit.
Right.
And then finally, after part 5, I figure I can't do this anymore. It's like, it's a nightmare to try to find this stuff and cobble it together. It's almost impossible. So I threw it all together and I decided I'm going to finish it. I'm going to do one like full cut. It's going to be a full episode, get it out, have it done for my life, and I can get my free time back. And now we're here.
Wow. So all together, you're talking months of putting all this together, right? At least.
Yeah. I mean, if you consider that trailer I made in 2017, years.
Right.
It's always kind of been sitting up there.
Right. Yeah. And I guess, like you said, finding those clips must have been, just finding them and then piecing them together the way you did and editing it the way you did. It's quite impressive, man. It definitely is. All that
But
work
it's
paid off.
but it's interesting. The clips you chose, I'm sure they were purposeful, right? Like you went with the Merv Griffin kind of backdrop. Was that more because all four characters were together sitting? Like, were there any other options you were thinking about at that perspective? And then from the other, like, you kind of went in the future, right? You got George from Law and Order. You had, actually, I don't know where the Elaine clip
Yeah,
is.
where's that Elaine clip in the red dress from?
I told myself I would never give away the sources of these clips. They'd be like mysterious, but the Elaine clip, and this is one of the ones that really locked it all into place because it just came out in 2020, I think. It was a New York Times like short film they made. I think the New York Times put out this series of just like short little films starring famous actors, just little like comedy sketches.
Oh, wow.
And
So just to backtrack there. So I'm assuming to O'Hara's point, you had an idea of which clips you were going to use for certain things. Other things, it kind of just fell into place where you were like, I want a clip for this. Let me search for it. And boom, you found it with Elaine. I mean, that's like serendipitous almost, if that's the case. I mean, you were just like, looking for clips and boom, like it's kind of cool, man.
Well, there's a thing that I'm a big David Lynch fan, and I was actually at the same time of all this is going on, I was working on a book proposal about Twin Peaks, working with this agency in New York about writing a book about Twin Peaks: The Return. So I got David Lynch's teachings in my head because I was studying and researching him at the time. And he says this thing about ideas that, as long as he calls them, it's like catching fish. Like as long as you are casting out and looking for ideas, eventually they'll start,
Yeah, that's a lot of I've heard that of a lot of artists, different versions of it. Yeah, yeah.
And it basically like Nietzsche says, if you start gazing out at the abyss, eventually it starts to gaze back at you. And I have to say, I mean, it probably sounds like I'm talking out of my ass right now.
No, I'm with you.
I promise you guys, as I looked for clips, once I started looking hard enough, stuff just started like falling out into my lap. And I was like, I have to do this because
that's what happens.
Dude, Dom, the clips we search every day just for posting a 30-second thing, believe me, we know what it takes. And
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, dude. It's crazy. It just starts showing up when you want it to. That's awesome. And that means it's supposed to happen that way. It's not supposed to be hard. And then it just flows. And you're just, all of a sudden, next thing you have 11-minute Seinfeld, David Lynch mashup.
Like I'm less familiar with the Twin Peaks Return as opposed to the original. Like it's obviously, it seems a lot darker than the original, right? But you mentioned the cop, the flavor of the donuts.
Yeah.
Was it just coincidence that the clip you made for Jerry was the donut holes bit?
I guess it is a coincidence, actually. Yeah. I've used that clip of Jerry doing that donut holes stand-up bit. A long time ago, I was freelancing for a few different comedy websites, and I found, actually, I don't think this video ever got purchased and put online. I think I put it on my YouTube channel, but I found this clip of Jerry talking about donut holes, and he kind of gets really existential about like, you can't buy a hole. A hole is absence of a thing. And I cut it. I took out all the laughter and I put like this like vibey, like space kind of music as if he was talking like on like a Carl Sagan documentary or something. And I thought it was funny the way it came out. And so I reused it.
Yeah. And then, yeah, go ahead. Omar.
So like ultimate goal, I know you said like quarantine, just whatever, you just want to put something out. But at the end of the day, like, Jason Alexander, I think like Larry Charles, like they all kind of I mean, it's got to be amazing for you, like growing up a Seinfeld fan and these guys like reacting to something that you produced. Have you heard, aside from the Seinfeld fandom, like I'm sure the Twin Peaks fandom as well has kind of recognized the art?
Which is bigger? Which of those fandoms is embracing this piece more?
I think the Twin Peaks fans.
Yeah, that's what I would have gathered. I mean, just from the vibe of the video.
Yeah, that's the thing that I wish I could have crossed over. It's just
we're crossing you over right now, man. Don't worry.
crossing
you over right now.
I had this idea that if I really stuck to this idea of just making it like generically dark and sort of prestige television, just like this limited event prestige moment, Seinfeld coming back and now it's dark, I thought that people would understand that enough. And I think in some cases people have responded to it being like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what's going on, but it's funny.
That honestly was my take the first time I watched it. And then I watched it 3 more times and I'm like, okay, I think I have some idea of what the plot, per se is supposed to be. But I just loved it on just a level of a film editor's like that. I know how much time that took just from watching. I'm like, this guy took a lot of time on this thing. Film editing is so tedious, and you're putting together all those clips. I mean, just from that aspect, I'm like, this is incredible. And then I had to watch it a couple of times to be like, okay, now what's the story here? But hey, I had to watch Lebowski a few times and Pulp Fiction a few times too. So there you go. You're in good company.
So Dom, did you struggle? So it sounded like, all right, George is the murderer. You killed Jerry. Like piecing together, like we haven't touched on the Kramer piece yet. Like how did he fit into it? Like I don't know where that clip was from either. Obviously, he's like running for president or something. But how does Kramer fit into the whole plot?
Kramer's a bit of a wild card in this return, because he has a mustache in the opening and then he doesn't have a mustache in third of the way through, which really bothers me because I was really trying to dedicate myself to at least some form of consistency. Seems like people didn't notice that much. I tried to just establish Michael Richards as sort of some like man in power, some guy pulling the strings. And like a lot of stuff with David Lynch, I was able to get away with it. I think actually a lot of this could only happen, I think, because of the David Lynchiness of it. Once I realized, after actually watching Twin Peaks: The Return and realizing that most of it is just people like driving in a car for like 10 minutes with weird music. And once I understood like, oh, so I can just slow down clips and I can get away with all sorts of incomprehensible shit that would never work with any other sort of connection. That's how I was able to actually make this work. And if you know Twin Peaks: The Return, if you know Twin Peaks, there are, specific references and imagery from that show in this. So I think if you're a Twin Peaks fan, you will have a better time watching this. If you don't know about it, you, like a lot of my YouTube comments say, like, you may want those 11 minutes of your life back.
I read a couple of those, but hey, man, that you want those, you need those to spice it up.
Do Dom, like Twin Peaks fans, like are there episodes like that, like, oh, the marine biologist, like they're not labeled like that, right? It's kind of like Laura Palmer, the original. Actually, I just watched the finale of like season 1 where the Plaza Cable guy, he from Seinfeld is in. Yeah.
I forgot he's in.
Yeah.
No, I don't think people remember Twin Peaks episodes titles unless you're like a super fan. Although for The Return, I know people really obsess over part 8, which famously is like all of a sudden the series is in black and white and it's there's an atom bomb. It completely just shifts to something completely different, which I tried to do some of that stuff in this.
Yeah. Like just going back to like the clips, right? And I know mention like the Merv Griffin stuff, like, or even like when they're out of character, like, did you purposely try to find it obviously post Seinfeld? Like you weren't going to put Jason Alexander from Pretty Woman clips in there, right? Even if it makes sense, or like they had to look older. Was that the whole point? Like it was the flashback stuff. Okay.
So that was one of the rules I set for myself. Not only that did they have to be like within the past like 5 to 10 at the max years, but they had to be clips from things that people don't like know that well. Because I found, my girlfriend here was watching along with me every step of the way, and I would show her a cut after I was done and she would be like, this clip just feels like I'm watching this movie and you're just like cutting back and forth to something else. Whenever I think I took clips of Jerry Stiller from The Heartbreak Kid, which was like a recent movie he did.
Ben Stiller. With his son,
yeah. And it just, even though it really worked like for the story, quote unquote story I was trying to tell, if there is one, it didn't make sense because you could just tell I was just using something that I found in a movie.
That was the interesting part about the clips, is that you couldn't tell. So if that was one of your rules, I think you did a great job of mashing in like obscure clips or clips that weren't just like you said, like you're going to know this is from that movie. And it's just kind of spliced in there because it looks right.
Who didn't make the cut? Like obviously you had Frank Costanza, you had Newman, and then the 4 main characters like,
and Soup
like
Nazi.
Obviously. What's that? Oh, and the Soup Nazi, yeah.
From that commercial.
Yeah. Were there any others like, because the secondary characters on Seinfeld, like that's what the show's known for. Like, and they've done a ton of work posts. Like, so you did have a lot, I guess, to work with from that capacity. But were there any other ones that were potential, or kind of just got left on the editing floor?
Yeah, well, a lot of people kept suggesting to me as I was just releasing like little vignettes that I should, take these actors who were in both series. I was getting a lot of emails about that, and Twitter comments. Like people were really actually like emailing me, being like, "Did you know that this actor was in both shows?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, but that kind of doesn't like. It's not that I want to." Like that's not the joke. The joke is that these characters are actually in the modern day and it just has the vibe. So there were a few, like I made an effort to avoid some of those connections. I couldn't use Bryan Cranston as much as I really would. I love the idea of the dentist, like, being in a Seinfeld return series. I think that's so funny, but I couldn't find any clip of Bryan Cranston that kind of like made it feel like he was that character and not just Walter White or,
Right.
That'd be
uh,
hard.
the actor who plays Crazy Joe Davola,
Yeah, that would be a good one.
I saw some clips of him, but he looked like unrecognizable. He doesn't really look like Joe Davola anymore. Although those clips of him in I tried to do flashback stuff of him, like, as the clown and everything, because that works with the vibe, but that felt like too far.
So, knowing how this is like exploded and taken off, is there a potential to do another one and include these other characters you may
What,
have not,
curb one maybe?
or a curve one?
Ah, man. Yeah, people have said, do another part, or you should make like Twin Peaks like 30 Rock, or you should, and none of it really to me feels as right as doing it with Seinfeld. And yeah, I mean, I have more clips, but by the end of this one, I was scraping the bottom of the barrel like so hard that like to do with like the like three like little tiny clips. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm open to it. I'd love to do it. Part
Yeah,
two.
it's easy for everyone to tell you, yeah, just go do another one. It only, they
Yeah.
don't know how long that's
It
taken.
spent me years to do this. Like even when I wasn't working on this, I was always just keeping my eye out for clips. And there are clips in here, like that clip of Jerry at the very, very end, which is like the
That's
little
from
like
the Colin Quinn thing, right? Cop
yeah,
show.
which literally like dropped. I think at least the YouTube video I found that came out, I think the day I edited that clip.
Oh wow, really? I
Yeah.
didn't put that together. See, that's what I'm saying, man. That's crazy because that was a perfect spot to throw that in there from that cop show, which is hilarious, by the way. Yeah, man. I mean, like we said, this is it's got a great, like O'Hara touched on, Larry Charles, Jason Alexander, these people, it got noticed, man. It was definitely caught our eye. I can see how, the Twin Peaks fandom was probably more on top of it because again, I didn't even we wouldn't catch the whatever you call them, Easter eggs, or the small homages to the Twin Peaks thing, but I just loved it from, like I said, the standpoint of just putting the whole thing together.
And you
Thanks.
and you stayed true to, like, I know it's kind of a blend between both, but in theory, I guess you could have like set George in Twin Peaks is what, Washington State, if I recall.
Yeah.
Right, but
Northwest.
obviously you stayed true to Del Boca Vista, right? And you put him there. Like, and then I don't know. And then I don't know. Was he Del Boca Vista the whole time, or I wasn't following that part too good? But
Was he in jail in Del Boca Vista when Frank showed up? Is that where he was?
Maybe in a holding
He
cell.
was in a holding cell, right? He was about to be interrogated or something like that.
He's out, that's that clip of him from Criminal Minds was, there's a clip of Jason Alexander. He was in an episode of Criminal Minds and he plays this like kind of like Colonel Sanders, like mastermind, like criminal guy. And he's got long white hair.
Yeah, it's really weird.
And he looks just physically, he looks very similar to the demon Bob in Twin Peaks. If people who are familiar with that know, Bob has long gray hair. So that was another element of like, okay, so this connects. Maybe I can. It's a siren.
That's right. We got a train siren on O'Hara's house every single time. What's your cat's name?
Nunzio.
Nunzio, like the professional wrestler?
Nunzio is a professional wrestler.
Yeah, he went to our high school.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, it would have been really great if you said yes, because he's a very obscure professional wrestler. I don't even follow professional wrestling.
I'm thinking about Enzo from season 5, the barber.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
All right, Dom, let's get back to Seinfeld.
Okay.
We just want to get like your favorite episodes, like growing up.
Yeah.
So you got into it obviously in reruns with your parents, like
Every night.
every night, right? Channel.
WPIX, you're talking?
And he was down in Philly area, so probably
he's in
not
Philly.
PIX.
Right.
Okay.
I remember it was Channel 7, I think, and a lot of nights it was on the same time as Rugrats.
7 and 7:30.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
5 and 5:30.
it was like close to The Simpsons at the time. I remember that, and my parents being like, "Turn off Rugrats," but on Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's a good parents.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
what like how into it are you? Like did you like I love seasons 2 through 5. Are you into the later seasons? Like Larry David left. Like who are some of your I based on our conversation, I can't tell who your favorite character is yet. I'm usually good at guessing that. If I had to
know if I
guess,
have one.
Dom, you're a creative guy. I think you're like a Kramer guy.
That's what I was going to
Yeah.
guess. You're a Kramer
Yeah,
guy.
I was gonna say now that I mean, I feel like I share this with a lot of my friends in that Seinfeld is one of those shows where I don't like know specific episodes, and I don't like I've never like watched Seinfeld like I watch, a show like Twin Peaks. Like I never sit down and watch it from start to finish. It's just always been on in my life, and I can, talk to you guys, I bet, about any episode, and you guys would say, "Do you remember when this happens?" And I would go, "Oh yeah, of course, one of my favorite moments." But I can't I mean, I remember moments that I really love, and now
Yeah,
that
give
it's
us-
streaming, I've like started to, rewatch like full seasons. But it wasn't until like this summer, I read that book Seinfeldia, and this author, goes through the history of how the seasons change. And I didn't even really know that that Larry David left, and that it got like zanier in the Jerry era. And
This is quite interesting right now. I want to pick up on this because I'm finding this to be a theme when we talk to anyone that's in that generation that you're in that didn't watch it live. And then now I'm realizing why. I mean, we are steadfast on seasons 2 through 5, and we'll give 6 and 7 its just due, but pretty much after Larry David left, we kind of are the biggest fans of, because we were watching it live. So this is a huge disconnect, and I'm seeing it a lot in this younger generation of Seinfeld fans, because you're right. You were probably just watching it, and one day a season 3 episode was on, the next day a season 6 episode was on, the next day a season, and you didn't really get if you go back and watch seasons 2 and 3 in a row as they came out, you will see the creation of George Costanza that we know and we love. And then you will see, if you go watch a season 8 episode, you're going to be like, what is this? This isn't George Costanza. But you don't piece it together as much because they slip in enough, and it's just George, and it's funny, and it's Seinfeld. But the whole characters were developed in those early years, and those are the ones we started that's where we started to love, and then all of a sudden it changed. That's
I
just
never really knew
kind of
how weird it gets. It gets so weird.
Oh, it gets super weird.
I had no idea. I guess just as a kid, I just always
butter
enjoyed doing
shave
that.
and the Frogger and
Well, yeah, I guess how do you define weird, right? Coming from a Twin Peaks fan.
That's true.
Coming from a Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't talk.
It's more just absurdity is what it becomes. It's not real, day to day, like you said, the minutia of day to day, character driven, dialogue driven, everyday life driven. It doesn't become that anymore. It becomes outlandish and absurd. And
is that mostly Jerry?
No, it's
Larry David's absence, or
I think it's more of well, this is just my take. O'Hara can give his, but I think Jerry was just, I'm acting in it. I'm the star of it. I'm collecting my check. I'm producing it, but I think there was a lot of hands on it. We go where Tom Sharones is gone after season 5. He was a director for the first 5 seasons. After he left, it took a whole different tone, and then they just carried that tone. Ratings probably drove it. I don't want to blame it on
Yeah.
cherries, but I'm not going to do. But I'll let O'Hara go.
No. I mean, listen, it went 9 years.
Yeah, it's long.
People say they went out on top. If they went out, they would have left after 5 years. They went out on top. But
Yeah.
even Jason Alexander says it. He says ever since Larry left, like George lost a lot. He wasn't as creative. But that's that. It's 9 years. What are you gonna do? Like Twin Peaks, they ran for 2 years and then had to come back. But like
Yeah.
you kind of knew what you were getting in shows like that, right? But listen, it's still the best comedy
Still
ever.
the best show in the world. Yeah, and you're going to find
I
some
agree
high
with you.
spots in the late episodes, and it's really just a matter of taste at that point. At least in my, it's just a matter of taste, which one you like more. But like I said, very, very few shows or artists in general go out when they should. I mean, Sopranos might be the only one that was like, we're done and that's it. Like, we're not going to give you any more. And somebody argued maybe they went one season too long. I don't know. I mean, The Simpsons is on what, season 37 at this point?
Yeah.
When's the last
too
time you watched a
long.
Simpsons episode?
I think that is a similarity. Well, Seinfeld did go, is it 9 seasons you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, longer than Twin Peaks, but I think both of those shows, at least in my mind, sort of share this thing of like, they were perfect shows in their time and they're never coming back, which is why it was so crazy as a Twin Peaks fan to see Twin Peaks come back and be so different. And that's, where this joke comes from, is how funny would it be if Seinfeld came back and it was just completely dark and disturbed.
I'm glad you're able to get it out, because I think, like you said, you put it up on YouTube and everyone's like, what is this? Or this is amazing. But now you're at least saying, like, here it is. This was the joke. You're all in on it. It was, I did this for this reason. I mean, we wanted to give you a chance to get that out there.
Feels like therapy. It's off my chest finally, guys.
And you got to grow the Kramer mustache during the quarantine. There you go.
Did my best.
Well, listen,
awesome,
Dom, this has been a blast, man. It was great to get the behind the scenes look of like this incredible film. I know you put a lot of work into it. And listen, as Seinfeld fans, we really appreciaded it.
Yeah, we jumped right on it, man. Everyone check it out. It's on YouTube, right?
Yep, on YouTube. Just type in Seinfeld The Return.
Oh, and what's your podcast called again?
Yeah, so I just started a podcast.
Eye of the Duck.
Eye of the Duck.
Called Eye of the Duck. It's a film podcast where we look for the most essential scene in a film and unpack it from the inside out. We're having fun with it.
That sounds awesome. What's your what's the latest episode? What film, or what's one of the ones that you would recommend checking out?
On Monday, we're dropping an episode about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which is a film that we love.
Okay, cool. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So you just like talk about certain scene. Oh, give me like a 90s comedy. Do you do like a Billy Madison or something? What do you got?
90s comedy. We haven't done a 90s comedy yet. I
It
mean,
sounds like you're more into I don't know, more something more going on than just a Sandler film.
No, that's fine. I'm down with it. The fun thing about our podcast is you can search for Eye of the Duck scenes in anything. Eye of the Duck is actually a David Lynch idea where
See, man, this is the thing you got to tell us. It went over my head, man. You got to fill us in on these
All right,
things.
so David Lynch says when you're studying a duck, you can look at, the duck's feathers, its bill, or its feet. But if you really want to understand the duck, you got to look at the duck's eye, which is very David Lynch kind of thing to say. But he says that film works the same way. Every film has an Eye of the Duck scene that's like the scene. So, I mean, it's fun to think about, like, I don't know what the Eye of the Duck scene would be of Seinfeld, like the moment that sort of defines the entire series.
Give me an episode. We'll tell you.
I don't know.
He's talking about the whole series. I think the whole series is probably what? The contest, or maybe the opposite, maybe the Hamptons.
Oh,
Well, those are episodes where like
Well, you know what scene I'm talking about when I say those episodes.
yeah.
True.
Well, the phone message, I think.
For us, we ranked it number 1 for a reason.
That's George's answering machine.
No, that's when George wants to switch the answer machine from the message he leaves on the girl when she invites him up for coffee, and he says no because he didn't realize coffee meant sex.
Oh.
Coffee's not sex at 12 o'clock at night. Coffee's not coffee at 12 o'clock at night. Coffee's sex.
All right, Eye of the Duck.
Sounds awesome, dude.
No, but I like that reference. I'm going to
So do
use that.
Yeah, I like that
All right,
reference
all
too.
right.
See that reference? That's a that's a great reference, and it's proven because I've missed it. I like references, and not everyone gets. So you have to kind of be in the know, and that's good.
Can I just ask you guys, do
Yeah.
you're Seinfeld, experts. Do you think that Jerry would ever and Larry would do another season, or is that thing they did on Curb? That's it.
That's it.
I don't think
That's
they
it.
do anything else.
Do you
No,
want them to?
no.
No.
I think
Yeah.
Curb got played out, to be honest with you. I mean, I know he took so many breaks and went back and everything, but no, I think they
But Curb is more about him.
right.
Yeah. Seinfeld's more of an ensemble, and to get them all beating the same drum, that ship has sailed. And it was a great ship, right? For seasons
Yeah.
2 through 5, unmatched. So no, yeah, I like Friends is coming back. Who cares? Come on.
Yeah.
Frasier's coming
not gonna
back. I
watch
mean, these
that.
comeback things, I'm not a big fan of. Even the clip show that Seinfeld does, the 100 clip show.
Yeah.
That was always a thing. They tried to like kind of spoof it because they were like probably one of the last shows to actually do it. I mean, Seinfeld's the last sitcom. It's the last sitcom that structure, the way the sitcoms were, they ended at Seinfeld, and then every show since then is. And this is my take, or not just my take.
Sure.
I think it's pretty well. I mean, that structure of a situational comedy on TV ended with Seinfeld. This Office and all these other things that came after it, completely different structures, and you're never going to see it again.
Rest in peace.
Especially with streaming. I mean, you talked about, it's coming on streaming now. We were talking about this earlier with no commercials. I think they're going to start showing longer versions of the episodes because they don't have the commercials. Like I think they already did that on Hulu a couple of times where they added scenes into the Hulu episodes.
Wow.
They may do that with the Netflix ones too, but who knows, man? I mean, that's up your alley, right? Film editing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the funny thing about the reunion stuff is that Twin Peaks, should not have come back, and it did. And the season 3 is probably my favorite shit I've ever seen. Which it's just so, it's still, it's going to be 4 years now. I still can't quite understand how he pulled that off. But again, a lot of people did not like the return because it was very much like my video, incomprehensible.
No, but it's funny you say that. Like, it's in the eye of the beholder, the eye of the duck, if you will. Like,
yeah.
Like, we like what we like, and there's a huge amount of fans that think Seinfeld season 8 and 9 are like, the Mount Rushmore. Like, but that's the beauty of America.
These types of shows. Yeah, these types of shows and these types of discussions, man. And we can't thank you enough, Dom, for coming on. This was awesome, dude. I hope this hope you like this.
Thank you, guys. And one last thing I wanted to say is there is an Instagram account. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or interested. It's called Sign Peaks.
Yeah.
They were real supportive of my video. Seem like nice people who put that together. It's just a mashup of Seinfeld stuff and Twin Peaks stuff.
Yeah, well,
If you're
I want to
associated
ask
with
you that,
that,
Tom.
at all.
I saw there's another Lynchian Seinfeld audio story they're coming out with on Kickstarter. I'm sure you're familiar with this, right?
I saw I'm not involved in any of that, but good for them.
Yeah, no, but it's crazy that this connection just continues to grow. So obviously there's something there, and
yeah, I mean that Sign Peaks thing was going on long before I did any of this stuff, I think. And yeah, there's material to be mined. I'm trying to put my finger on it for you guys of why it works, but
I think it just
there.
I think it goes to your earlier point you made, man. I think it's they both look at the minutia of things. It's just I think Seinfeld dives right into it on a linear path, and Twin Peaks deconstructs it. I don't know. I've heard this. Now you got to be all go. We're just gonna. I've heard people compare. I mean, it's the difference between, and this is just a musical thing, but the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers Band. I mean, the Grateful Dead deconstructs a song into almost nothing at some point, where it's just like a plink, bloop, blink, and they're just deconstructed into nothing. Where the Allman Brothers just keeps it going, and they do their jazz variation that just more ascends and doesn't and just stays linear. I don't know where the hell that came from.
I think it's two quality shows that there's a real cult following between both.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. There you go, wrapping it up succinctly. I love the brevity. I love the brevity.
All right, Dom.
Dom,
Thanks,
thanks a lot,
guys.
man. This was awesome.
Good to see you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, this was great, dude.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Have a great day.